Good morning, guys. So we're going to start learning about the oceans this week. And I know oceans are super exciting. I love to go to the beach in the summer. And we're getting close to summer. So I'm going to read The Snail and the Whale. We've read this before in class, but it's been a while since we've read it. This is by Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler. They're the same authors that made The Gruffalo. So keep an eye out and we'll see if we can see the Gruffalo hiding somewhere in this book. This is about a snail who's stuck to a rock and he can't swim. He can't really travel, but he longs to see the oceans all around the world. And so he meets a whale who's going to take him, and together they explore and learn all about the oceans that cover our planet, and they travel all over the whole world. So this picture looks pretty familiar. There's seagulls and a lighthouse. There's some sand and a beach and rocks, a little bit right here. Lots of boats on the ocean. This is a tale of a tiny snail and a great big gray-blue humpback whale. This is a rock as black as soot, and this is a snail with an itchy foot. The sea snail slithered all over the rock and gazed at the sea and the ships in the dock. As she gazed, she sniffed and sighed. The sea is deep and the world is wide. How I long to sail, said the tiny snail. You see the snail on the rock there? These are the other snails in the flock, who all stuck tight to the smooth black rock and said to the snail with the itchy foot, "Be quiet, don't wriggle, sit still, stay put." But the tiny sea snail sniffed and sighed, then cried, "I've got it, I'll hitch a ride." This is the trail of the tiny snail, the silvery trail that looped and curled and said, "Ride wanted around the world." Whoa. This is the whale who came one night. When the tide was high and the stars were bright, a humpback whale, immensely long, who sang to the snail a wonderful song of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves. And this is the tale of the humpback whale. He held it out of the starlit sea, and he said to the snail, "Come sail with me." This is the sea, so wild and free, that carried the whale and the snail on his tail to towering icebergs and far-off lands. You can see the snail up there. So where's the first place they went? They went to the oceans up in the North Pole, or down in the South Pole, right, where there's a lot of ice, where it's very cold. And what do we find living there on the ice? Penguins and some seals. With fiery mountains and golden sand. So the next oceans they visit are tropical and warm. They're near an island with a volcano and a monkey. Turtles, sea turtles, fish, parrots, all sorts of tropical animals. Palm trees. Looks like warm beach. These are the waves that arched and crashed, that foamed and frolicked and sprayed and splashed the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. How many of you guys like playing in the waves at the beach? Oh, they dove deep to the coral reefs. These are the caves beneath the waves, where stripy fish with feathery fins and sharks with hideous toothy grins swam round the whale and the snail on his tail. You can see an octopus, a lobster, fish, all sorts of creatures living in the coral reef. This is the sky, so vast and high, sometimes sunny, blue and warm, sometimes filled with a thunderstorm with zigzag lightning flashing and frightening the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. So even far out in the ocean, there's weather like storms and wind. Ooh, look at this ocean. It's by the beach. This is the beach by the forest. And she gazed at the sky, the sea, the land, the waves and the caves and the golden sand. She gazed and gazed, amazed by it all. And she said to the whale, I feel so small. Is the world a really big place? When she came to the forest one, she found bears, eagles, trees, mountains. But then came the day that the whale lost his way. These are the speedboats running a race, zigging and zooming all over the place, upsetting the whale with their ear-splitting roar, making him swim too close to shore. This is the tide slipping away. So they went to a crowded beach where lots of people were driving really fast, loud speedboats that hurt the whale's ears and confused him. And we know about the tides. So he was in the water on the beach, but then the tide slipped away and now he's stuck on the sand. Can whales move on the sand? And this is the whale lying beached in a bay. Quick, off the sand, back to sea, cried the snail. I can't move on land, I'm too big, moaned the whale. The snail felt helpless and terribly small. Then, I've got it, she cried, and started to crawl. I must not fail, said the tiny snail. This is the bell on the school in the bay, ringing the children in from their play. This is the teacher holding her chalk, telling the class, sit straight, don't talk. This is the board as black as soot. And this is a snail with an itchy foot. A snail, ee, the teacher turns pale. Look, say the children, it's leaving a trail. This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail that says, save the whale. So the snail can't really talk to people, but it left a message with words telling the teachers and the students that the whale needed help. And now, if you'll peek right here, you'll see the kids are playing in the dirt. And what are they drawing? The Gruffalo. These are the children running from school. Fetching the firemen, digging a pool. Oh, fire trucks have what? Big hoses. So they're going to dig a little pool of water and then they're going to spray the whale with water from the hoses until the tide comes back. Squirting and spraying to keep the whale cool. Everyone's helping. This is the tide coming into the bay, and these are the villagers shouting hooray as the whale and the snail travel safely away. See it? What an adventure. Back to the duck and the flock on the rock, who said, how time's flown and haven't you grown? And the whale and the snail told their wonderful tale of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars in enormous waves, and of how the snail, so small and frail, with her looping, curling, silvery trail, saved the life of the humpback whale. Then the humpback whale held out his tail, and on crawled snail after snail after snail. Remember, those snails didn't want to travel. They thought that the other snail was silly, and they told him to sit still, be quiet, don't wriggle, stay put. But once they heard the story of all the adventures, they decided they wanted adventures too. And here they are, all sailing away with the whale. And they sang to the sea as they all set sail on the tail of the gray-blue humpback whale. And that's the end. I can't wait to hear all about everything you learn about the oceans and the adventures you have exploring the oceans.